Hi, this is Dawn from Ninja Bunny Crochet. Welcome back to Granny Squares. Today we're going to work on the metered granny square. As you can see, this granny square is a little bit different than our previous granny squares. The center is in the corner. It still worked with the same 2 stitches, the double crochet and the chain 2. So as long as you don't have any trouble working a double crochet or chain stitches, you should have no trouble working a metered granny square. What I really like about the metered granny square is how they come together. When you're placing them in your project, you can place them in different orders and they can make different designs. Like if you are doing a bag or a blanket, you could put them together like this to make a larger square, and it makes a really pretty design. Or just by turning them, you can make a completely different motif. Switching up the order of the colors, you could actually change the entire look of your project. So this is why I think this is a really neat and fun square to do. Like I said, just turning the different squares, you can change the entire look of the project and change an entire different and make it look entirely different. So I really think that this is a versatile and neat square that you could do. So let's get into making a metered granny square. To start our granny square, we're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. Make sure your slip knot can slide up and down your hook. And we're going to start with a chain of 4. Slip stitch into the first chain to form a ring. Chain 3, and place 2 double crochets into the ring. This forms our first shell. Then we're going to chain 2 and place 3 more double crochets for our next shell. If this looks familiar, it's just like starting any other granny square. Chain 2. Now we need to place 2 more shells for a total of 4 shells in this first row. So go ahead and place those next 2 shells, and remember to chain 2 in between each shell, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 1, and we need to slip stitch to the top of the starting chain 3. To start round 2, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. And then slip stitch into the chain 2 space to the corner. Chain 3, and place 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 and 3 more double crochets into the corner. Now we've come across a side, so we chain 1 for that chain 1 spacer, and into the next corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. If you're unfamiliar with a double crochet stitch, or you need more help with a double crochet stitch, I do have a tutorial on how to make a double crochet. Now continue this pattern all the way back around till you get to the beginning again, and I'll meet you back up at the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the beginning chain 3. And here's where it looks just like a traditional 4-sided granny square, but here's where that ends. We're going to cut off our yarn and fasten off. So we need to weave our ends in. So get a yarn needle and let's weave these ends in before we go any further, because what happens is they kind of get in the way if we don't weave them in. So just to get them out of the way, we're going to go ahead and weave them in now. That way they're not going to be in the way. I do like to go back and forth a couple of times to make sure that they won't come out. And we can go ahead and snip them off. We're going to do that with the top one as well. Just weave it down through a few stitches. And back and forth a few times. Three times is usually enough that it will not pull out, because your project can only stretch 2 ways at a time. It cannot stretch 3 ways. So weaving it back and forth 3 times in 3 different directions usually will ensure that your ends will not come out. So now we're going to get our next color. And since we're making these all the same color, our next color is going to be this spring green. So let's get our green. Bear with me just 1 second while I get my green out here. There we go. Sorry about that. And we're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. And we're going to start in the corner. So it doesn't matter which corner you pick, any corner. And fasten on with a slip stitch and chain 3. And we're going to place 2 double crochets in to the same chain space into the corner, chain 1, and move on to the next chain space. We're going to place 3 double crochets, chain 1, and now we've reached a corner. So just like any other corner when we're doing a granny square, we're going to place 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets. So that we nicely round the corner. Chain 1 and go into the next chain 1 space and place 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and now we've come to our last corner, but this time we're not going to place 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. We're just going to place 3 double crochets and stop, because we're not going all the way around. We're going to stop right here. As you can see on our example, we come around and we stop. So then we're going to chain 3 and turn the work. Then we're going to go right in back into the next chain space and place 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and we're just going to, for now, we're just going to leave this chain space right here. When we put on the next row, this chain space will come into play. Three double crochets into the next chain space. Chain 1, and we're going to come to a corner. And we're going to treat this like a regular corner, and we're going to place 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Chain 1 and go to the next chain space, chain 1 and go to the next chain space, chain 1, and we're going to place 1 single double crochet into the last, to the top of the chain 3. So that last shell, it's a chain 1 and then 1 double crochet into the top of the chain 3. And then we're going to fasten off. And you can see how this looks, just like our example. Now we can go ahead and weave these ends in, and we'll start on the purple round next. To start our next color, we're going to start with a slip knot on our hook, and we're going to fasten on with a slip stitch and chain 3. Now it doesn't matter whether you start on this end or the other end, as long as you're consistent and each time you start on the same spot for each round. That way your squares will look consistent. So start with a chain 3 and 2 double crochets into your first chain space, chain 1, and continue working your shells of 3 double crochets into each chain space across the row. Until you come to the corner where you're going to work 3 double crochets a little bit of fuzz there, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Okay, continue working in the pattern till you get to the last shell, and then I'll show you what to do with this chain 3 space. I've just finished my last shell of 3 double crochets, chain 1, and I'm coming up to this chain 3 space. We're going to place 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. Then you chain 3 and turn the work and continue working in pattern to get down to the last row, to the end of the row. I will meet back up with you when you get down here, once so we can fasten off. Okay, I'm just finished my last my last double crochet shell. I've got my chain 1, and we're going to place that last double crochet into the top of the chain 3. Make sure we get both loops. And then we can fasten off the purple. And we're going to weave those ends in, and we're going to start the red. So we will start our round of red, and once we get the red on, then we'll continue on to the border. To fasten on and chain 3. Start with 2 double crochets, and move along just as usual. Nothing has changed. This round is going to be just the same. We just have a few more spaces, but it is the same as the previous rounds. So just continue with this round. Continue with this round just like you did before with the other 2 colors. Around to the other side, all the way around to the other side and back around to here to the beginning, and I'll meet you back at the beginning so that we can fasten off and we can start the white. Okay, I'm coming up on the end of the round, and we're going to make that last double crochet into the top of the beginning chain 3 and fasten off. Now before we move on to the border, we're going to weave in these ends too. Let's look at our example. Now our border goes all the way around the entire square. And this is how we're going to finish off our granny square. We're going to go all the way around. And instead of starting on the end, either end, we're going to start in the corner. So let's get these ends weaved in, and I'll meet you back up and we'll start with our white in the corner. Okay, let's fasten our white on in the corner. And we're going to chain 3 and place 2 double crochets into the corner to start the corner. We're not going to complete the corner, we're only going to do half the corner to begin with, and when we come back around at the end we'll finish the corner. Chain 1 and move on to the next chain space and place 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and in this next space we're going to place 3 more double crochets. Chain 1, and in the next space 3 double crochets. You would treat these spaces, which are either the chain 3s or the 1 double crochet that you did at the end of the row, just like you would a chain 1 spacer on a regular granny square. Chain 1, and now we've come up to the corner, and we're going to do that work in that corner just like we would a regular granny square corner. So we're going to place 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Chain 1. Continue all the way around till you get back to the end, or back to the beginning, and we will complete the last corner. Okay, I'm coming up onto the last corner, and we're going to complete it by placing 3 double crochets into the corner, chain 2, and slip stitching into the top of the original chain 3, or the starting chain 3, and fasten off our yarn. Now if you wanted to, you could continue going and make more rounds on the white, but for now, for our example today, we're going to fasten off. And then just weave in this end, and here's our 4 corners, and we have a metered granny square just like our example. And And so if you've liked this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our tutorials. And thank you for watching. Happy crocheting!